Welcome to another episode of Time, Talent, Treasure Radio from Taatjes Financial Group. Taatjes Financial is a company that specializes in helping retirees and pre-retirees build purposeful retirement plans. Custom plans that not only help clients steward their treasure, but their time and talent as well. They believe that if you're taken care of financially, you go even further to make the family, community, and kingdom impact you truly desire to make, which is the ultimate purpose of wealth. If you'd like to set up a no-cost, no-obligation meeting with one of their financial advisors, give them a call at 222-4236. You can request a meeting at taatjesfinancial.com or simply stop by their office on 19th Avenue Southwest in Wilmer. All right, welcome back to the show. So glad you're joining us here on Time, Talent, Treasure Radio. Jared Sebesta here. We're going to continue this conversation on estate planning. We've had Tim Mattern from Taatjes Financial on the past couple of shows, and we was talking kind of about the ins and outs of an estate plan. And last week he talked about what happens and some of the dangers if you forego this planning process with your retirement and your estate. Ben Taatjes joins me on the show now. Ben, and we're going to continue to talk about estate planning, but take a slightly different angle. But estate planning, a huge part of what you do, and this is a really important process that people need to engage with.
Yeah, Jared, I think, our plans can basically be boiled down to three questions that we want our clients to be able to answer, right? And those three questions are, what am I stewarding? So that's where you start. You start with this full picture of everything you own. And we try to get what's called full view capital allocation. So that means I'm looking at their retirement accounts. We're looking at their real estate. We're looking at who owns everything, right? Whose title is on it. And then, what's the risk properties of everything you own? Mm-hmm. So that's question number one. What am I stewarding? Question number two is, what do I need now and in the future to live on? So basically, it's what kind of income do I have to get in order for me and my family to live, right? It gets back to this whole idea of wealth versus income that we've talked about so many shows in the past. Mm-hmm. And then the last question, and that's really what today's show is kind of about to some extent, is what do I do with the rest? So if you know the total what you have, you know how much of it you need for now and the future to live on, that last question is, what do I do with the rest?
I think the default answer is I hold on to it. I try to maintain it as best I can, perhaps grow it, use as little of it as possible, perhaps. And then when I die, all of it goes to my heirs, kids, grandkids, and charities. I'm not trying to trivialize this and make light of it, but that's, I suppose, kind of the default answer to that question, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so many times people don't understand that most of them die with a bunch of money. And then if they don't have a will or they don't have a trust, the state decides what happens to that. Mm-hmm. Really you can only do one of three things with your money when you're gone. I mean, it's either going to go to the IRS as form of taxes. It's going to go to your heirs or a charity. I mean, there's not a lot of other things you can do with it. So we like a plan that's going to, up front earlier, mm-hmm. right? And that's why we talk about wealth transfer versus estate planning. And part of that whole picture is this mindset, realizing that if you don't plan what I would call properly, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You will have a lot of money left over when you're gone, which will do you no good, of course.
There's a book out there called Die With Zero by Bill Perkins. We've talked about it on our show and our podcast in the past, but we just did a podcast on this last week on Retiree Purpose, which aired right here on KWLM every single Friday at 4:30. But last week, you talked about this extensively. The title of the book would give away his mantra. He actually believes that you should die with zero to some extent, but talk about how that kind of comes into play with this conversation of estate planning.
Well, Bill talks about a story in there about a woman who passed away, and you hear about these stories from time to time. Somebody dies, and a whole bunch of money goes to some charity. And most of the time it's celebrated. It's like, oh, this is so great. This person died. Nobody knew she had all this wealth, and here it is. And it goes to some charity. Mm-hmm. And Bill challenges that a little bit to say, was that even really a gift? And I've talked about that before too. It's like, you can't give when you're dead. Mm-hmm. So, holding on to that and having that surprise would, in my mind, be poor planning. right? From a tax standpoint, there could have been much better uses of tax breaks from an income tax standpoint while this woman was living.
Sure.
But also when you die, you don't get to enjoy it. Right? You're gone. You can't make a gift when something is not useful to you. So there's that. You miss out on the enjoyment, right? Part of giving should be, God calls us to be cheerful givers. Part of that means I'm giving it while I'm able to be cheerful. So I think Bill Perkins' book, that's just one story of many in there that kind of highlight that there's a curve to the useful, money's useful for us and our charities while we're living far more than when we're dead.
Yeah. That's an interesting point. We've got about a minute or two left, but obviously we've painted the picture. You should be giving us a call and starting this conversation, certainly. It's not just an assignment to check off. We're not suggesting that because of, it's like a to-do. Give people, again, another little a snippet as to how they can view their assets, their wealth, their legacy, and try to change their paradigm on how they should look at this part of this plan.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is don't do what traditionally is done with waiting, until either close to the end of your life or at death to truly begin this process of transferring your wealth. Part of being a good steward is preparing the next steward, Jared. Part of it is beginning this process of giving both to your kids, to charities, while you can enjoy it. Part of this process is, naming, naming them, but perhaps in the will, but also start to give them the funds now. When the kids can use it, when the charities can use it, when you can enjoy that. I hate seeing it when I'm like Bill Perkins on that point. Is I don't like seeing it when there's a huge estate gift done at death. I think that person could have used it, used that far earlier, and it does kind of indicate were they holding on to it for some reason, right? And so to me, that starts to look like poor planning. And there's something our industry does a very good job of, Jared, is make this mistake that our wealth tends to go up and up and up until the day we die. And I think that's a problem. And I think if you want to learn more about that, listen to our full podcast because we dive a whole lot deeper into this concept of, maybe you should start, leveling off your wealth and using it while it's still of use to you or the charities or the kids in your life.
All right, that sounds good, Ben. Well, if you want to take Ben up on that offer and start this conversation regarding your estate planning and wealth transfer plan, now is the time. You can give Taatjes Financial Group a call at 222-4236. You can request a meeting at their website, taatjesfinancial.com, and you can always stop by their office, which is located on 19th Avenue Southwest in Wilmer. And like Ben said, we're going to continue this conversation about dying with zero. Is that the best plan for your retirement and your life? We're going to cover that in a brand new episode of Retiree Purpose coming up later this week right here on KWLM on Friday at 4:30. I'm Jared Sylvester, joining in this episode of Time, Talent, Treasure Radio. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Securities offered through Avantax Investment Services. Member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Avantax Advisory Services. Insurance services offered through an Avantax affiliated insurance agency.